Hi guys, my name is Julie Hawkins and I am the P6 lecturer at Accountancy School, and I'm here today just to give you a small presentation on what actually P6 entails. Now P6 follows on from F6, and we are lucky to have the same examiner since December 2012. He is a very, very fair examiner. The exams cover the syllabus. We can expect the exam to have a large amount of the syllabus covered, usually around 60%. All the questions the examiner asks relate to real live situations. The examiner is in a very good place for this, as he has his own tax practice and also he lectures in taxation, not obviously for ACCA, but for other institutes. So he sees both sides of the equation. He sees it from a student perspective and also obviously from a real life practice perspective. The examiner doesn't set any traps or tricks. All the questions and all the information given in the questions is relevant to the requirements of the question. Now with P6, it continues on very much from F6, and there are two new taxes in P6. Capital acquisitions tax, which deals with the taxation of gifts and inheritances, and stamp duty, which is a tax on documents. So for instance, if you're buying a house, you're going to need a document, and that document has to be stamped, and that's what we learn when we study stamp duty. Now with P6 we continue very much on from F6. So with regards to income tax, we spend a lot of time studying residence and domicile and the effect this has on your income tax. We also look at various reliefs we have for employment income with regard to somebody's residence and domicile. Plus we also spend time on employee share schemes, which we did start in F6 and we will continue in P6. We will study a new area, trusts and also pensions, plus two investment products, SURE and EII. Now we did do a little bit on EII, Employment Investment Incentive, in F6, but we continue this in P6. When we move on to corporation tax, again we spend a lot of time looking at the residence of companies, double taxation relief for companies. We study the UK double taxation treaty. We look at the difference from a tax perspective on a branch or a subsidiary. We look at group relief, which we did actually start in F6, but we continue this very, very important topic. And we also look at consortiums. We look at the taxation of closed companies. And we look at major reliefs that we didn't do in F6, like R&D, research and development. We also do a lot more on our capital gains tax. Now, as this is a very important tax in P6, I actually spend a little bit of time revising what we did in F6 before I move on to the P6 topics, as we really do need our F6 knowledge for capital gains. So I do spend a little bit of time going back over that, making sure that we all remember our F6, because for a lot of us it could be a long time since we did F6 or we could have got an exemption. Again, the effect of residence and domicile on the tax, very, very important. We look at the interaction of this tax with the other capital taxes. The other capital taxes are the two new taxes, capital acquisitions tax and stamp duty. And usually one of the questions will look at those three taxes together. Also, we have some major reliefs in capital gains tax, reliefs for sole traders transferring their businesses to limited companies, retirement relief, which is a major relief in capital gains tax, and also entrepreneur relief, which again is a major relief in capital gains tax. Now, we then look at VAT, and to be honest, there's very little new in VAT. Most of the questions that we actually get in P6 actually an F6 student could actually do. The only new topic is VAT on property. So I spent a little bit of time doing a full revision of F6 VAT because, as I say, a lot of the P6 questions will incorporate our F6 topics. So I like to make sure that we have those fully revised. And I spent a lot of time on our one new area, which is VAT on property. VAT is a very important tax for P6, and usually between 6 and 10% of the question paper will actually have VAT in it. It could be in its own question, or it could be mixed into a lot of the questions. So it is important that we spend time on this particular tax. Now, what's the main difference between F6 and P6? F6 is mainly a number crunching exam, and you spend a lot of your time doing calculations, income tax calculations, corporation tax calculations, and capital gains tax calculations. And you might actually have to work out the VAT due or payable or refundable to a business. And with F6, you'll have your multi-choice questions, and then you'll have your 7 other questions on separate taxes. So each question is on a separate tax. You'll have your income tax calculation, you will have your VAT calculation, you'll have your capital gains tax calculation, you'll have your add backs and maybe your CT computation. So each question that you face at F6 will be on a completely separate tax. And you will also be told the actual tax to calculate in the requirements section of the question. So you'll be told to calculate John's income tax, or you'll be told to calculate Byrne Limited's corporation tax. So you're always sure of the tax that you're doing, and you're told exactly the tax to calculate in the question. And 80% of your time is spent working out figures. Now, when we get to P6, that will not be the case. P6 requires the student to read a detailed scenario and to be able to identify the taxes involved. So the question doesn't tell you the taxes to calculate. It will just ask you, calculate the tax liability of John, or calculate the tax liability of Byrne Limited. It won't actually tell you the taxes to calculate. That's the first thing. Plus, each question will be on a multitude of taxes. So there could be 4 taxes involved in the scenario, and you have to be able to understand how these taxes interact with one another. Also, you won't be doing major calculations. You will only need to calculate what you need to support the advice that you're going to give to your taxpayer. You're required to advise the taxpayer in a professional manner of the tax implications of the scenario that's being presented to you. So you have to be able to do a very professional answer. And question 1 has 4 professional marks for this. So you can't be using, text language. You have to be able to present the answer in a very professional manner in either a letter or a memo. Also, you will be required to give advice on an alternative way to achieve the taxpayer's outcome, which could result in a lower tax liability. So usually the first part of the question is to advise the taxpayer on the tax implications of what they want to do. And then what you are usually required to do as the next part of the question is maybe to tell the taxpayer, well, this might be a better way from a tax viewpoint to achieve what you want to do. Now, the layout of the P6 exam is there's 2 sections. There's section A, which is the compulsory section, and this is 60% of the paper. Question 1 is a multi-tax question. It is 35 marks, which includes 4 professional marks for how you present the answer. And it will usually involve 3-4 taxes, and it is very, very detailed question with a very detailed requirement section. Question 2 will be another practical scenario, not as long obviously as question 1 and not with as many taxes, but still quite detailed. Now, section B has 3 20-mark questions and you have to do 2 out of the 3. Usually in section B, the questions are more structured and they're usually on 1 or 2 areas. Sometimes though, what the examiner does is he splits the 20-mark question into part A and B, and A might be an income tax scenario while B might be a CT scenario. So they can be broken up, and sometimes students do find it hard to pick the 20-mark question that they do, because they can do part A from one question, but they can't do part B, but they can do part B of another question. So students can waste a bit of time here actually picking the questions that they should do. Now, for the June 2018 exam, and actually the December 18 exam as well, we'll be looking at Finance Act 2006, which deals with the tax year 2017. And as part of the exam, we are given tax rates and allowances and certain information. Now, this table can be found on the ACCA website. Now, what do you need to pass P6? Well, there's no magic formula. It's just hard work. And if you're prepared to put in hard work, P6 is a very gettable paper. You have to work though from day one of the course. That's the really big thing. You can't cram this subject in to the last 2 weeks while you're actually on study leave, because there's too much information and there's an awful lot of rules and requirements to learn, and you just cannot cram them in. If you do that, you get very confused and you make a bit of a mess of the questions. So if you want to do P6, you must be prepared to put in the work, and to put in the work from the very beginning of the course. Plus, it is very, very important that you practice on questions for tax. You cannot go into the tax exam without this practice. You just won't be able to do the exam. So it is important that you do the homework every week and you do the mock exams. Now, why choose P6? Well, P6 will actually give you knowledge that you will actually use again in your career, or just maybe to calculate your own tax. Remember, there's 2 things certain in this life: death and taxes. You will be paying taxes until the day that you die. So it is always good to be able to calculate your own tax. Or you might be in practice, obviously, and you might be you might be doing the tax of your clients. So P6 is a really good paper, and it is something that you will use again and again in real life. If you are prepared to work hard, it is definitely a very attainable paper. The examiner that we have at the moment is a very fair examiner, and we have a lot of past paper questions to practice on. He's been the examiner since December 2012. Plus, it has one of the better pass rates of the option papers, and you might actually enjoy it, because it is, even though I say so, a very interesting subject. Now, why choose P6 in accountancy school? Well, obviously I would be 100% exam focused. All the classes here at Accountancy School are live streamed and recorded, and a student can watch the recordings as many times as they wish up to the exam date. The recordings can be paused, they can be fast forwarded so you can get to the point that you want to go over again. Plus, obviously we have a Moodle system, and I post on Moodle exactly what is in the recordings, so you don't waste time looking at loads of recordings to find what you want. It's very clear what is in each recording. I have written the course material myself, and there is hundreds of examples that we work on in class that will bring you through every topic that we do. And hopefully with these examples we build, and that at the end we can obviously go through very tough topics, and they will actually be easy to follow. I give homework every night after each class, and I do expect students to do it, and I correct that homework myself, and I will give people feedback if necessary. People who do very badly in homework, which is fine because the more mistakes you make, the better you actually get, I actually would give them additional questions to do so that I would be happy that the student understands the point. Plus, I have 3 mock exams for each course, and the first mock exam only covers the capital taxes, but the final 2 mock exams cover the entire syllabus. Obviously, it wouldn't be possible for me to correct all the exams because of the time, so we do have a team who I oversee, who I give the marking structure to, and therefore the results from your mock is usually available within 3 to 4 working days. So you get the mock exams back very quickly. Plus, after each mock exam, I do a tutorial which is recorded, and I go through how you should have answered the mock exam, what you should have included in your solution, and what you actually get the marks for. With P6, students think they're doing great because they're able to put down loads of things in their solution, but a lot of the time it's not relevant and they're not getting any marks for it. And they don't really ever know this until somebody actually tells them, well, look, you wrote all that, it was actually right what you wrote, but it was totally irrelevant to the question. So these tutorials are really very, very important. Plus, obviously, I'm available after every class to answer any questions that a student might have, or for the online students, or for maybe students who don't want to ask after class, they can email me any questions they have, and I will always answer those emails as quick as possible. Also, I actually do revise in class any F6 topic that I think is fundamental to the P6 course. If it isn't a fundamental F6 area, I still give some notes that the students can go through if it is a long time since they've done F6. Plus, the manual that I use, besides my own notes and examples, is from the Institute of Tax, and it is a brilliant manual that brings a student through a tax from the very beginning to the very end. The online students, so for people who are online, they are actively encouraged to participate in class. They can send in questions live and I will answer them. And also they send in their homework every week by PDF and it is corrected within a day or two and it's sent right back before the next class. Obviously, I've had over 30 years experience teaching ACCA, both F6 and P6, and I am genuinely committed to each and every student that comes into my classroom to ensure that they do pass this exam. If you have any questions at all and you want to ask me anything with regard to P6 and making the choice, because it is a tough choice of what subjects to do, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is juliehawkinstax@gmail.com. Thank you.